Okay, so you say you have an all-day sort of school. What does that look like?
Tantra is the science of living. And every action that you do, there is a tantric there are tantric suggestions, tools, and techniques that can increase your effectiveness in doing that. Many people think of Tantra as the sexual cultivation system, but I would say that Tantra is not only the sex, but it's also the effective way of going to the bathroom before and after the sex, and going into the kitchen, and how effectively can you eat after the sex and you have the munchies. So it
Uh,
is every practice, every activity of the day systematized over thousands of years, so that you can bring yourself, coming from your deeper heart, right into the meat of life, right into the pithiness and the nourishment of life.
so thousands of years. Do you think they had texting back there? Like, my guess is that the modern world is a little bit different than Tantra masters might have anticipated.
The tantric masters always anticipated this time coming. They knew that this time was coming, and they even described different qualities of this time, when even teachers would be found to have backstories that all of our foundational institutions would start to crumble, and that there really would be a chaos, but also a great opportunity to be your own authority, your own master. And so Tantra also said, if a technique ain't working, if a mythological story isn't resonating in the minds of people, then get rid of it. Because what we're venerating isn't any one system, it's the process of working to awaken your spiritual power. And so it's actually, it is a system of practitioners. No matter what that practice is that is going to be effective, it can still be called Tantra if it is attempting to wake up your dormant energy and to expand your consciousness from where it is now to a bigger vantage point, so you can take in more life.
So, what do you think about, let's say, the modern narrative of the Matrix? How much do you think that does that apply to life these days?
I think it very much does apply. I believe that the more that you can be inspired to do personal practices in the midst of being aware that other people are generating the possibilities of your life until you take that responsibility personally, I think it's very effective. When people become aware that there are other people, architects of our possibilities, running the show, and they leave it at that, that they don't feel inspired in the midst of that to go through that training montage. You know how every futurist film has a training montage where the protagonist gets their shit together, pulls himself out of the muck, and really makes themselves functional, toned, well-sprung revolution machine. If people are living out that montage while also having the wow moment of all this is designed by someone else, then we have a useful storyline. And that useful storyline needs to continue to inspire us to be thrifty, ultimately conservative, and daring at the same time, that we can be protagonists to our own stories. That is what Tantra promises, is that we can be living like nomadic royalty in the midst of a great epoch, that things are changing, but we can still have a lifestyle that feeds us personally, that we can still feel strong and whole, but we can't necessarily indulge in all of the promises that the archetypes have given us.
So, not everyone is a Neo, and some of us might be the Big Lebowski. and we may not quite be honoring our spiritual path in the way that we would like. What kind of words of wisdom, or how does Tantra help those that are having a hard time getting off the couch, so to speak?
Right? Personal acceptance and observation is the first step in Tantra. And they say that if you can accept where you're at enough that you can simply breathe and watch your life. So if you find yourself on the couch, reach over to your cell phone and set a 2-minute timer. That 2-minute timer, once you start it, simply watch your breathing and simply watch your mind. That is a spiritual practice right there. We're starting wherever we are. We don't need to commit to 10 different practices before we can say, oh, now we're in the fold or we are accepted.
That, I think that helps, because I think a lot of people, they're never sort of where they want to be, and a lot of times the spiritual life was put to the background amidst all the other distractions that we go through, when in fact it may be the most important thing, but it doesn't seem to be in terms of how we spend time. And so I think Tantra has a huge mystery for a lot of Westerners, because we're always associating sex with it. But from what you're saying, it sounds as if it's a whole life system that may use the sexual principle as the main reference point. Is this true?
Yes, it does. And yes, if we apply the same earnestness, the same hunger that we have for any of these big drives, be it food, be it sex, be it, fancy cars, some people crave that. So you go to wherever you crave. This is a part of the tantric system. So say if you love fast cars, then go to that, go into your garage and be around your car. And when you start feeling that excitement, that is your vitality moving. Sure, it's stimulated by that car or that food or that lover. Once you have the energy starting to move with excitement, that's when you apply your awareness. That's when you simply watch. And we're not saying that you have to watch 100% of the time, but that you apply watchfulness, that you are wakeful and watching how you like this. What's going on in my body? What's going on in my hunger? And then you start saying, okay, this is an opportunity of great enjoyment. Whatever has led me to be here where I can enjoy this, now I'm going to be thankful. So I will then say that there's a source for my enjoyment. Somebody has created all of this, be it myself, be it nature, be it God, whatever you want to call it. And then just sit in that feeling. And before you fully satisfy yourself, before you take the big bite of your wonderful meal, take a moment and feel grateful while you're still wanting. If you haven't indulged yet in that food, in that sex, in that car, in that whatever, just feel the anticipation. And even if you don't feel grateful, just spend a moment with feeling anticipation, because there's a short step from anticipation to gratitude. And it's a lot easier to pray before you've been satisfied. Because once you've been satisfied, you are one with the object. You only start to pray when you're slightly separate from the object. And so feel grateful before you eat. Feel grateful before you orgasm. Feel grateful before you take that test drive of the fancy car. And use anticipation as the bridge to gratitude. And yeah.
Wow. What a beautiful teaching. So why don't we end on that note? That was just a short little introduction into the tantric practices with Yogi Shambu. And he's having a workshop come up in 2 weeks in Vancouver. And perhaps if you want Yogi Shambu in your area, you can just contact him and or his sister, and they might show up for a workshop, right?
We would love to. Have love will travel. Absolutely. April 4th, we see you there. Thank you, Elijah. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for doing it.